All right, hey everybody. We're gonna do a quick little video, kind of going over decomposition. I know we did it in our Zoom meeting on Tuesday, but I think this would be really good to go over it again and make sure everybody gets a chance to see it. So that's what we're gonna do. On this one, we're gonna talk about the 5 stages of decomposition. One of the first things you need to remember is that decomp has a scientific name and it's taphonomy. So anytime you hear the word taphonomy, you just know we're talking about decomposition, okay? And why is decomposition so important to study in forensics? Well, it allows us to gauge how long someone's been dead. Okay? But once again, they never will say this person's been dead for 2 days and 1 hour. They will always put the time of death in some type of range because you never know exactly for sure how long they've been dead. You have an idea. That's why they express it in a range. And a lot of that is because of all the environmental factors that can either speed up decomposition or slow it down. So I want to just talk about some of those environmental factors that affect decomposition. We're going to get past the mortises here and get into right here, entomology. So these are all sorts of different environmental factors that will either accelerate decomp, speed it up, or slow that down. Usually the number one thing that affects decomposition is definitely the outside environment's temperature. If it's really hot, it's going to speed it up, and the colder it gets, it slows it down. Okay, so I think that's one everybody can automatically just make a connection with. But something else to think about is if a body is exposed to the elements, such as air, oxygen, it's going to speed up decomposition. If it's really humid outside, lots of humidity, it's going to speed up decomp. And looking down here, rainfall, it's going to speed up decomposition. Now, number 3, surrounding condition and surface the body is resting on. So is the body resting on a snowbank or is the body resting on hot rocks out in Moab? So what the body is resting on could once again either speed it up or slow down decomposition. Okay, let's look at this one. So dependent upon the clothing the person is dressed in, the more clothes, the more tightly wrapped, it slows down decomposition. If you're in a swimsuit versus a winter coat, the swimsuit, more exposed skin, more exposed to the weather, the elements, it's going to speed it up. The more clothing you have on, the more insulated you are, it's going to slow it down. Type of burial, that's if you're buried below ground or if you're above ground, in a box, in a bag versus not. Access of bugs, obviously the more insects, scavengers, coyotes, anything that can get to the body and break it down more, it's going to speed up decomposition. Okay, the more obese you are, the heavier you are, it's going to slow down decomposition more because it acts as an insulator and slows it down. Okay? All right, and once again, the more open wounds, injuries, the higher chance you have of bacteria, scavengers coming and helping to accelerate decomp. All right, so we're going to go back up here to stage 1 of decomposition. And I just want to make sure there's so many different things that you could focus in on. I just want to make sure you focus in on these most important parts. So decomposition, you got to know the name. Stage 1, it's a fresh stage. And you got to know the time frame. It's 0 to 3 days. Right, so it's fresh stage, it's 0 to 3 days. Now, there's 3 important things that are happening here, okay? 1, autolysis is occurring, and that means your cells are breaking down, okay? And because your cells are breaking down, it triggers the second one, mortises, okay? And I know it says alga mortis occurs. We should change that because it's alga mortis, it's rigor mortis, and it's liver mortises occur. Okay, so all 3 of the mortises are happening. So rigor mortis is when your muscles are stiffening up, and that really has to do with your cells breaking down, releasing the element that causes those muscles to overlap and grab a hold and not relax and let go. Okay, so they're grabbing a hold and it's stiffening up your muscles until finally they break down to the point where it slides back. You go down, so that's your rigor mortis. Algor mortis, that is your body changing temperature. So your body is slowly getting, well, I shouldn't say colder, but your body is, usually it's dropping in temperature until it reaches the outside temperature. So that's algor mortis. Okay, now livor mortis. Livor mortis is happening directly because of autolysis, your cells breaking down. And in this case, it's your red blood cells breaking down. And your red blood cells hold that red coloration urethra, and that red coloration gets absorbed into your surrounding cells and tissue, and it leaves a purple coloration. And we call that lividity. It's when your pooling of your blood happens and it leaves that purple coloration. So in the fresh stage, 0 to 3 days, autolysis is happening and all the mortises are happening. Okay, so the third thing is we get right here to the insects. Okay, immediately at time of death, if it's exposed to the outside environmental weather conditions and insects, flies are going to show up and they're going to start laying eggs. And I mean, one female egg can lay up to 200 eggs. One female fly can lay up to 200 eggs. And so immediately the body's going to be covered with eggs. Okay. So there's a lot that's going on in this fresh stage. Okay, all the mortises, autolysis, and then eggs are being laid by flies. Okay, now because the stage is 0 to 3, if you remember entomology, it only takes approximately 24 hours for those eggs to turn into first stage larvae, also known as maggots. So by day 2, there's maggots on the body. By day 3, those first stage maggots have grown to second stage maggots. So now you have larger maggots crawling all over the body after 3 days. Okay. All right, so that's a fresh stage. Let's move on to the next one. Oh, this is just showing you the fresh stage. I really need to move these pictures so you can see them. So there's the pig. It looks like the pig is going through rigor mortis. Even some lividity, there's a purple coloration where it's starting to pool towards the bottom. We don't know the pig's temperature, which would be algor mortis, but the mortises are happening. Autolysis is happening. And there's those cells. Look how itty bitty tiny those those eggs are. And like I said, that's probably the result of maybe 1 to 2 flies laying all these eggs. Okay. All right, so stage 2. All right, stage 2 is called putrefaction. Now, how I remember putrefaction is it's pukey. And whenever it's pukey, you get big and bloated and green coloration. There's a really stinky smell. So putrefaction, okay, it's 4 to 10 days. You get green coloration, you get big and bloated. Now, the biggest thing here is that bloating. That's what I would focus in on, is the green coloration and the bloating. All right, so let's talk about the bloating. Why is that happening? Bloating's happening because you've got bacteria mostly in your intestines and your stomach, and that bacteria is already there, and it is breaking down your surrounding cells and tissues, and chemical reactions are occurring and gases are being released. Because gases are being released, it's getting trapped within the body. You're not exhaling it out anymore. You're not passing gas, so you're not able to release these gases, so it's trapped and the bodies just get bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, if you find roadkill that maybe a cat ran over and part of the body has been ripped open, you're not going to see bloating because there's open wounds and the gases escape, and it's just not going to happen. Okay? So bloating happens when the body doesn't have an external spot for those gases to leave and escape the body. So it gets trapped and it gets big and bloated. So stage 2, putrefaction, 4 to 10 days, green coloration, stinky, and bloated. Okay. All right, so we kind of look at some of these pictures. I think I removed those. Yeah. So let's get right on to stage 3. Stage 3 is another intense, gross stage. So once again, putrefaction is pukey, it's stinky, it's gross, but black surrounding the pig, it's the juices, the fluid, because now this pig that was big and bloated, the tissue has been broken down far enough that the muscle tissue and skin ruptured and the gases escaped out and the juices escaped out. So that's why you see this liquid coloration around this pig. Okay, it's starting to flatten out, but you can see there's still a lot of soft tissue, tons of flies laying eggs, larvae, maggots, same thing, crawling all over this pig, right? So that is black putrefaction, 10 to 20, gases seeping out, liquid seeping out, right? Okay, let's go right. Oh, this is showing you gases seeping out, kind of gross, but I do like this picture for a couple things. This one right here. The way I have this ordered on my slideshow. The reason why I like this is it does show different stages. So here you've got the eggs. Here it looks like first stage larvae. It looks like I can't necessarily see second stage larvae. Oh, maybe up here. And that's definitely a third stage larvae. So I know this pig has been dead for at least 3 days, because you wouldn't have the larvae at this size unless it's been at least 3 days. Now, if I surround and look around the body and find the third life cycle, the third stage of the life cycle, and it's the pupa stage, then I know this pig has been dead for longer than 10 days, which is where it would fall. All right, so let's move on to stage 4. Stage 4 is when you finally get your sigh of relief. Oh. Stage 4 is when the odor is starting to dissipate, go away. Basically, the soft tissue and the juices is gone. So we're looking 20 to 50 days. This is a big range, 20 to 50. It's starting to get mummified. The skin is becoming leathery. And flies, they're out of there. They don't want the soft tissue. They're not going to hang around as much. But the new insect that loves to come in are the beetles. Beetles love the tendons and the ligaments and the leathery skin. They love that part. So that is something to think about when you're on stage 4, is when the beetles start to show up when things are nice and dry. Okay? All right, so butyric fermentation, mummification, the skin gets dried out 20 to 50 days. All right, so here is a good stage. So here's the thing. When you look at this image, okay, you see all these maggots, they are leaving the corpse. They are leaving to go turn into the pupa stage, which is that dry outer shell cocoon stage until they can hatch and become an adult fly. So they're leaving, but like these little darker black dots, those are beetles. That's when the beetles show up. And once again, like I said, they like to eat the connective tissue, the tendons and ligaments, the outer hard leathery skin. Okay? So that's what we got here. All right. We move on to stage 5, dry decay stage. Now look how big this range is. 50 to 375 days. I mean, it's massive. This is where really you're starting to see the bones way more exposed to the elements. There's not really any soft tissue. Tendons, ligaments, that's kind of been eaten away. So very few remnants that way. Okay. All right, so there's your 5 stages of decomp. All right, so stage 1 is fresh stage. Stage 2, putrefaction. Stage 3, black putrefaction. Stage 4, butyric fermentation. And stage 5, dry decay. Okay. Now you want to go back through and try to memorize what's the time frame. First stage, 0 to 3. 4 to 10. 10 to 20. 20 to 50. 50 to 365. Now, it is very possible that all of these stages could be sped up or slowed down based on all those environmental factors we talked about. All right, so just know everything's always expressed in a range, but hopefully if we can look at the mortises and entomology and look at the weather forecast, how has it been the last couple weeks, we can get a good idea of how long somebody's been dead if we put all that information together. That's why body farms is so helpful, is they can use that knowledge of how they have put bodies in different situations and what has happened to them and how long did it take to get them to that stage. All right. There is stage 5, dry decay. All right, so that wraps up decomposition, and hopefully this was helpful for you. All right, bye.